Hey, I'm Joe Pruitt. I'm the publisher and /CEO of Aftershock Comics, and you're watching The Experience.
What's up, everybody? I'm Kyle. That's Dan. And this is in stores this week, where we talk about books that are in stores this week.
Be a horrible name if we talked about other things instead.
Well, ironically, we kind of are.
Yeah.
Because once again, due to supply chain issues, paper shortages, and shipping strikes, about half the country can get about half their books this week. So we might be talking about supposed to be in stores this week.
Yes.
Which is, a thing that's happening that we just have to kind of, all of us as comic book readers and fans, kind of wrap our brains around,
Mm-hmm.
Miss Jen just reviewed a book in her show, Minute to Skim It, that she says comes out this week, that I picked up at a store that came out last week. So release dates are all over the place because sometimes it depends on when people can get books. And sometimes it depends on when paper exists.
Remember when it used to be a little more reliable a couple of years ago?
No. I was a comic book shop owner a couple of years ago, and it was never more reliable. Back then, the big obstruction was, did your UPS driver feel lazy?
Oh, yes.
You'd be there, standing at the front door, watch them pull up, and then mark your shipment as undeliverable because they didn't have access to the door. There's no cars parked in the way. It's not even raining. Undeliverable. So they just didn't want to lift the heavy boxes. Anyhow, I also have been thrown off by a friend of mine in the comic book retail world talking about how right now one of the most popular books in his store is Monkey in a Wagon versus Lemur on a Big Wheel.
Tom Hutchinson?
Yes.
I wrote for that.
You wrote in that book?
I had 2 stories in there. I did one with Mark Dos Santos and one with Tone Rodriguez.
Okay, I need the book.
I know the Mark Dos Santos one's in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Tone was supposed to be for a second issue, and I don't know if it actually came out.
I just texted Tom and was like, hey, man, I need like 6 copies of that.
Yeah, that was Chris Moreno.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot remember the other gentleman that was their book together. And then I guess they kind of had a parting of the ways as they were putting that book out. It's a great little story. And it literally is weird setup that ends with the monkey in the wagon going into a head-to-head battle with the lemur on a big wheel.
I have so many questions about monkeys and wagons and lemurs on big wheels.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, we're going to skip it.
I forgot all about that book.
No good can come from this.
Yeah, I saw Tom post about it and said he had sold out of it. Were you the reason he sold out?
No, but now I've got like 9 people hunting for copies. So
yeah, I've got some in. I got 1 or 2 in like storage somewhere. But
I'll own several by the end of the week. I guarantee it. My ninjas are on it.
Yeah, you can check with Chris Moreno.
I actually, you know who I think I'll probably get most of my copies from?
Huh?
Chuck Rosansky. I'm sure he's got them.
Mile High, yep.
Yeah. All right, but let's talk about actual books that are actually out in stores this actual week, or kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Let's start here. I don't even know what this book is.
That is the storyteller, Jim Henson's story. No, is that story? Yeah, that's Jim Henson's storyteller.
Yeah, that's got to be what it is. But that's not the cover that was on the PDF, was it?
I saw that one. I don't know if it was in the weekly or the PDF. But yeah, that's Jim Henson's storyteller. What was the subtitle of that?
The Shapeshifters.
The Shapeshifters. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this story. It's all about the Tuatha Dé Danann, which I have to thank Kevin Hearn and Luke Daniels for allowing me to be able to pronounce that, which is basically Irish and Celtic pantheon of gods. And this is a story about a group of children who are cursed by their evil uncle so he could rule the country, as their father is focused on war. And he curses them to be turned into swans. And it's that story. And it's a story that brings them together. But it's a cool little story. And this old guy is telling it to his dog, who his dog insists that he start writing these things down so he can become famous for telling his stories.
And if you read this book and you don't hear the voice of Rolf come out of the dog, you've done it wrong. I love the Jim Henson Storytellers books because in my brain, and Dan and I discussed this a little bit earlier, whenever I read a narrator line, I hear it as the voice of Kermit the Frog. Because everything in my world has to live up to like Muppet Christmas Carol levels of storytelling.
So dear, the people there, they moved out of the way and
no, but you know what I mean. It's got that definite Jim Henson voice, and like several characters will be different Carol Spinney voices just because I can hear him in my head because I'm so familiar with those characters.
Yeah.
That I always love these books because I can just see them being acted out by these, by the Muppets and by human actors in my
Frank
head.
Oz would play the uncle.
Right. And then your real life actor would be somebody like Saoirse Ronan or, somebody who's actually of Celtic, origin, and I can hear it, and it always brings these stories really to life for me. My favorite one is still the fairy story they did 4 or 5 years ago.
Don't think I saw it.
It was one of the first Storytellers series they did. And the reason that one was really good is that I could hear not only the Muppets, but Neil Gaiman. Like, it was one of those, it felt like a Neil Gaiman story told by the Muppets. And I was like, this is it, man. So,
greatest thing I ever saw was the idea to do a D&D game with the Muppets. The Muppets sitting around a table playing D&D, but then we would cut to live actors acting out the scenes from D&D, like Jason Momoa and Henry Cavill and stuff like that, but then have their voices still dubbed by the Muppets.
Yeah.
I would watch the hell out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would too. I just
coming out of Jason Momoa.
Well, I'm just thinking Dr. Teeth as the Bard.
Yes.
Just and it just sounds like Dr. John, the whole time, just and now he's doing Scanlan things from Vox Machina, except that it's Dr. Teeth saying it. So I can get behind that. But no, these are always really great and they're really fun reads, and they're usually pretty accessible to all ages. Even if maybe if they can't all read them, they could be read to younger kids, and it wouldn't be too heavy.
It's a good story, good art, self-contained, nice little book.
Absolutely. All right, let's go from there to something that's not all ages. Robin Hood.
I was a little disappointed in this one.
Okay, so it wasn't just me.
Yeah, it felt like the story was very cookie cutter. And even some of the dialogue was a little stiff. There was a line where she was a series of smart-ass comments as she was shooting somebody, and it felt totally forced. And just,
it felt to me like like Joe Brucia went, oh, we can get Sean Chen to draw a book. I'll just throw some words at the page. It'll be good because Sean Chen drew it.
Yeah.
And the art's phenomenal, but the writing is just
yeah.
That if Joe Brucia were to see this, I'd say, man, I love you. 90% of the time, it just absolutely knocks my socks off.
Yeah.
But this felt phoned in.
Yeah, I got to say the same. And I've known Joe for close to 20 years. He's a good guy, but
Yeah.
this is not his best.
Right. And I think sometimes the one-shot formatting that Zenescope is doing, where you're kind of forced into this sort of very staccato storytelling,
Yeah.
doesn't always serve well. Sometimes it's phenomenal. Like some of the stuff they've been doing with Belle has been so good because they force you into a narrow bubble. But other times it just doesn't pay off because you need more breadth and width than you can do in one book.
Agreed.
Yeah. So then we'll come over here to Cowboy Bebop number 2. And I'm going to cop to something.
What's that?
I don't like it.
I'm going to disagree with you on this one.
Well, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I watched the series on Netflix, and it was okay. Issue 1 was okay. Issue 2 was not as good as issue 1. But none of it is even coming close to the original Cowboy Bebop, which is something that now that I've rewatched that, I remember so much why I was so head over heels for the original Cowboy Bebop.
I have watched one episode of the Cowboy Bebop anime. And I've watched the whole series of live action. And at this point, I'm still enjoying the live action more than the anime because there's you mentioned staccato. Anime has a staccato thing to it where it feels very disjointed. It's something I'm not a big fan of with anime. I've watched a lot of anime. I'm not a huge anime fan. I do like it, but I will say this. And this I thought was a really fun story, and I love hell, I'd still be on that planet.
The way I always equated the original Cowboy Bebop is that if storytelling is like jazz, where all the parts have to work together, Cowboy Bebop is Miles Davis on cocaine.
Okay.
Not necessarily interested in all the parts working together, just interested in making the most unique noise it can. And that's kind of why I love it, is that it was very much this, it doesn't have to be congruous.
Yeah.
It just has to be. And as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, when I really came to understand Cowboy Bebop, like there was something to that was very special. And I don't think anything else has lived up to that sort of sense memory that I have of that.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I can't, I don't like it because it doesn't feel like it's the right thing.
But I'm going to throw an idea out there to you. And this is something I've thought for a long time. When we are that age, that 12, 13, 14, and we get a hold of something that is probably just a touch more mature than we normally get to see, it's a little more out there. I think it hits our younger brains a little different and leaves an impression that we wouldn't get if we
absolutely.
watched at another point.
It's not good by comparison. That's not to say it's not good. Yeah. I don't like it by comparison.
Yeah, and I try not to compare.
And that's the other part of this, is that maybe I need more separation. Like, I decided to rewatch all of this when the show came out on Netflix.
Yeah. This afternoon, when I talked about the differences between the Death on the Nile movie and the novel, Lisa, when we got out of the theater, said that she was in the bathroom in the theater, and the woman was complaining, well, it was a good story, but it's not as good as the book. And it's like, well, the book still exists.
Right.
It's just a different take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just having trouble. I'm having separation. Yeah. It'd be like, okay, I'll give you for instance, this past Saturday, I went and saw the Lord of the Rings, the middle one, whatever the second movie was.
The Two Towers?
Yes. Now, I've never seen the Lord of the Rings films
Okay.
because I have a PTSD as it relates to the Lord of the Rings from being forced to read them in school and therefore not reading them because don't make me read something.
Okay.
So I went in completely blind. If I had gone into that movie having just read the book, I would have a very different experience.
Yes.
So I think the problem with Cowboy Bebop number 2 coming out when it's coming out is that I literally just finished the anime. Like, 3-4 days ago. So it's like I need more time. Like if I pick this up when the trade comes out, I will likely feel very different than I feel now.
Yeah. I didn't read Lord of the Rings before I watched the movies. I watched all 3, really enjoyed them, and then tried to go and read the books and found them very difficult to read.
Well, I mean, we won't get into the Tolkien of it all, but I have very strong feelings about those books and movies because of the way those books and movies were forced upon me rather than allowing me to experience them on my own. Right. I read The Hobbit of my own free will.
Yeah.
And then my teacher was like, "Oh, you read The Hobbit. Now you have to read. Like I'm assigning you the other books." And I went, "No. I want to move on to something else now." And I'll come back to that, but I want to go over and read Moby Dick. And she's like, "Nope, you have to read the other ones." I'll just take the F, thank you. So, all right. Next up, Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, number 4.
I'm not sure if I like this one or not.
I'm having trouble separating Sheena and Pantha.
Okay.
No, just like in my brain, those 2 books should exist together. And they don't.
Yeah.
And so I have to go back and look at what happened in Sheena number 3 to remember what is Sheena and what isn't Pantha.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know that Sheena is holding its own.
It's good looking art, and there is a story, and it's not a bad story, but it feels like maybe we're kind of running in place in this episode or in this issue.
Right. Absolutely.
Like they came to the writer and said, "Hey, we need 5 episodes," and and he had 4.
Right. And their solicitation for 6.
Oh, okay.
So
it did feel like that every once in a while in a story where you get that episode that just feels like it's, I keep saying episode, that issue that's just filler, that just, you have a little bit of information you want to get out. Like there is a couple important moments in this, but it just doesn't seem like there's enough for the issue. And then when you get to the end of the issue, you're like, okay, can we just move on and get to the rest of the story?
And this is something that I heard somebody say, and it's not a knock on Dynamite, don't get me wrong. Because, I mean, this person said it as it, and I don't think it's this way. Sometimes I think Dynamite adds, or feels like they add books to a series so that they can get all of the cover art that they've paid for printed. And I know that's not how it works, and I know it's not true, and it's not necessarily meant as a knock, because there are some absolutely stunning covers for this book.
Yeah.
This is the Linsner. There's a
that's not Linsner, that's Perillo.
Or Perillo, sorry. There's a Besh cover. I can't remember her first name.
Rose
Besh. There's a really cool Linsner. There is a Jimmy Broxton cover that's really fun. Like there is some really dope. Arthur Saddam does a cover.
Yes,
that is really a cool cover. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but sometimes I feel like maybe we stall a little more than we should, and the only reason to keep buying is the cover art.
I don't know if it's a regular thing for them, but it does seem to appear in this one.
Yeah.
Like
I said, not all the time. Definitely, like, not on something like Evil Ernie, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So, like, we'll see. But that's what this felt like to me. Okay, so this is from Ahoy Comics. This is Gail Simone's new book.
Yeah.
This is The Wrong Earth, Trapped on a Teen Planet.
Hmm.
And I reached out to her to try to get her to come on and do an interview and talk about this book. And she's getting ready to go on a nerd cruise
I heard that.
and you know who else is going?
Huh.
One of our producers, JD. They're not going together. It's just they just both happen to be going.
So JD has an assignment now.
Yeah, his assignment is to not fall off the boat.
This isn't necessarily Gail's series. This is a series that exists that Gail is doing an issue of.
Yes.
This is a one shot in this universe. And it's kind of a play on the whole multiverse thing. What if you took a hero from a grim and dark universe and dropped them into one of the light? Like if you took Batman from a Frank Miller comic and dropped him into a Batman story from 1970s after the Adam West series had come out and they had gone all shucks and family thing, and still put him with the same sidekick and the same femme fatale character that they get. That's what Wrong Earth is. This particular one shot has them transferred to, which is what is pretty much an Archie planet. You know, it's their mock-up of an Archie world. And it's kind of fascinating seeing everything put together. It's a fun little silly book. You know, I mean, this is not Shakespeare, but it is fun. You know, and it's an interesting premise. So I think Gail does a really good job. There's some great covers to it.
There's a second story where the art is done by my friend Bill Morrison.
Mm-hmm.
That I really dug. And yeah, there's it's a cool concept with a marshmallow fluff kind of execution.
Yeah.
So definitely a fun kind of one-shot read if you're looking for a palate cleanser.
Mm-hmm.
And on a week like this where there's not a ton out, it's a good time to take a chance on something like this.
Yeah.
All right. Star Trek Discovery. Dan, you said you were a big fan of this one.
I was. This I got a chance to write the Honor Harrington comics over at Top Cow. And so sci-fi with a cat in it is right up my alley, because Honor Harrington has a tree cat, a six-legged cat named Nimitz, who just kicks ass. And I had a lot of fun writing that character. So I come into this book and to find that the first issue of the Star Trek, which I've never watched Star Trek Discovery, completely new thing for me.
Anson Mount is phenomenal in it.
Anson Mount's phenomenal in everything.
Yeah, it's true. Except for Eternals.
No,
not Eternals. Inhumans.
And he was phenomenal in Inhumans. Doesn't mean it was good.
Even he couldn't save that show. So
he wasn't saving it, but he did a really good job in it. And there's rumors that he may be back as Black Bolt in Doctor Strange. But this whole book is from the point of view of a cat on a spaceship. And it's wonderful. It really is. The writer really has the idea that how a cat is going to behave. They must own a cat. And we've had dogs on the Star Trek ships before. Archer had a dog. This is the first time I've seen it. Oh no, Data had a cat too,
which is an odd pairing, by the way.
Yeah, this is just so much fun. Exploring. It's an interesting way to introduce the Star Trek Discovery universe, because now I'm curious, but I'd almost want to keep it going from the cat's point of view. I don't think they're going to, but.
Right. There was also a Star Trek book that I would have been interested in reading that I don't think we got the PDF for this week. It was part of the Mirror War. It was the Captain LaForge book. That's on my pull list just because I want a Geordie LaForge comic. But yeah, the cat was fun. Like, it's sort of this. It almost to me felt like an Orville concept, only made more serious.
Yeah.
it could have just as easily been an alien that's vertically challenged.
Yep.
But it's a cat. So there's a level of aloofness and seriousness in the way the story is presented that wouldn't exist if it was a space alien.
Yep. It definitely has catitude.
All right. Dan will be back next week, everybody. No, I'm kidding.
You're just upset you didn't make the joke.
I really, really am. I had a bunch of good ones during Miss Jen's show, but anyhow. All right. So this is Manor Black number 2. This is another one of those that I absolutely dig. But I think it suffers from a level of needless complication. And Cullen Bunn is so good at writing complicated stories. But I think that this story in a big way suffers from... I have a friend who I always say, hey, man, you're being needlessly verbose. Who will say 30 words when he could say 1. And this kind of feels like that. It's that they're adding plot points and adding twists and turns that they don't need. And they're adding time shifts, which this book does a really good job with time shifts. Part of it's in color and part of it's in black and white.
Yeah.
And that's how they exhibit the time shift. But I think it could be simplified and the story made clearer. And at the same time, I don't think it would take away from anything if the story were simplified.
I will tell you that I'm having a slightly different reaction to this. I remember reading the first one and it not really clicking very well for me, thinking there's something here, but there's just, it's kind of like an archaeology thing where you pull up the find, but there's got so much dirt and dust on it and stuff, and you got to start brushing it away.
Right.
I feel that this is a lot of that dust and dirt is gone because this issue pulled me in so much more than the first one did.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that that's accurate. But for me, it felt like, okay, I understand where this book is going, but like, let's go there.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it felt like maybe there's a little bit of, and it may pay off in the sense that it's misdirection or that this is informing something we don't know it's informing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I will totally eat crow when I'm wrong on this, but to me, it just felt like, maybe they're trying a little hard.
Yeah.
All right. We have one book left, Dan.
That's it?
Yeah. We only read 8 books this week. Or 9 books this week.
Seems like there's another one. But okay, let's see it. Nope, then we definitely have another one.
What did I forget?
Dynamite.
Oh, where is that one? Okay. Let's talk about this one real quick. This is Red Tag number 1.
Yeah.
It's Raphael Scavone and Raphael Albuquerque.
And Roger Cruz, who does the art.
And I love Raphael Albuquerque, by the way.
Yeah. This is an interesting little story. I mean, I was a little surprised by it because I wasn't sure what I was going to get. And you've got this little group of, what's a good way to describe them?
They're taggers. They're street artists. They're a crew. But they also kind of have a sort of inherent sense of justice.
Yeah.
Inherent sense of social something.
Yeah.
That seems to play a role in all of it. And I'm not sure where the story's going. I'm not sure what the end goal is.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a really good setup and trying to kind of showing us who the characters are.
It to me, it comes across like it's a fly in the ointment type of story where you've got some big criminal thing going on, and these kids end up being drug into it or find their way into it and are going to be the catalyst to screw everything up.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really tell where this takes place. I don't know if it said in the beginning. I may have missed it.
It's like Sao Paulo.
Okay. So it's Brazil. Yeah. So that makes sense. And it does have that feel to it. It's a good read. I actually really enjoyed it. I'm curious where they're going next. This is a Comixology original. So this is a digital release. Now, they send us the books when they're releasing them on Comixology, and then they tend to print them later. So
this should be in stores in about a month.
Yeah. So this one won't be late because it's digital. You'll be able to get it on Comixology.
And its actual release date's today.
Yeah. So you can actually get this right now. So, but I do like covering these because there's some great creators doing some great stories over there.
So I want to, and I don't want to get into deep on this, but I want to reframe this book a little bit. Imagine these kids are Ukrainian and the bad guys are Putin. It kind of has that vibe as to what we're seeing in the real world.
Yeah.
In terms of a scrappy insurgency or a scrappy group that's just kind of trying to muck up the works versus something that feels insurmountable.
Yeah.
And you can tell early on that the people whoever wants it bad enough is going to win, and that it's going to be this group that we're following. So
yeah, I can see that.
All right, last book. Dynamite Never Dies, #1 by Fred Van Lente.
Even though this is a #1, it's not a #1 because it carries over from Dynamite Never Dies or Dynamite Lives or whatever the other books were in the original Dynamite series. And it's basically Dynamite zombies. But you've got this evil group that's Red Sonja and Vampirella and one other female character I can't think of at the moment. Panther. And of course, the zombie plague finally gets to the jungle. So this is a Tarzan issue. You get a lot of Tarzan, and it's a zombie story. You know, there's a zombie dinosaur. There's stuff like that. If you are a zombie person, this is your book. You know, I'm not necessarily a zombie person, but it's a decent story. It's good art. So
yeah, the art was definitely the high point for me.
Yeah.
I love Fred Van Lente, but I didn't feel like the writing was particularly strong. The storytelling was particularly strong. I also at times felt like it's okay. You've got Red Sonja, you've got Vampirella, you've got Panther, all of whom have their own books going right now. And yet these are different ones than them. So are we establishing a multiverse in the Dynamite universe now where...
Well, they've been doing that for a while.
Right, but...
Universal and...
Right, but it's like... It almost feels a little shoehorned.
But look at Marvel Zombies. I mean, when you take characters from an existing universe and you want to do a zombie story, it's kind of what happens.
Right. No, absolutely. I feel like I'm jumping in and being overly critical because I didn't read the previous series. So now there's an amount of knowledge and understanding you have to have for this book to feel good, to be what it needs to be, that I don't have.
I think my issue with this, and it's not a huge thing, but when you do a zombie story, since you can't focus on you can, but it's a different type of story. You can't really focus on the zombie. You have to focus on the survivors. And since we are introduced to Pantha, Vampirella, and Red Sonja as evil versions of them. I'm not sure who you're supposed to be sympathetic towards. We
Right.
really don't spend enough time with Tarzan from a point of view of getting to know the character. We get right into the action.
Mm-hmm.
So the big selling point for something like The Walking Dead is you get involved in these characters and you want them to survive.
Right.
And the zombies become just this ever-present evil or ever-present danger that they're in. And it's a survival story. So
Right. Like this story had a Draculanian spacecraft. Like, why are we adding now more aliens than we need to a zombie story? And we're in Tarzan's world, but like me, Tarzan, you from Baltimore. Like it didn't seem to have the kind of cohesion I would expect.
yeah, I didn't know Jane was from Baltimore.
I don't know that it's Jane.
Who else would it be?
It never said. I don't know. Maybe Tarzan's dating somebody else now. Like that's what I'm saying is that I don't have the prerequisite that I need.
JungleSingles.com.
Right. Only loincloths.com.
Yeah, there you go.
Or
Well, she has a kid, so I think it's more than dating. I'm thinking it's probably Jane.
sure, but like again, we don't know that. We don't know what the background is. Why does she have two guns all of a sudden in one panel? Like it's I would say this.
She's from a John Woo movie?
Clearly. But no, it's I would say this. Read the previous volume before jumping in here. This feels like you're jumping into the middle of a story, not the beginning, even though it's a number one.
It's a cool cover.
It really is.
Yeah. Has that nice old movie poster vibe.
Yeah. Yep. It looks like a one sheet poster. So
yeah. From the old Universal Monster movies.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, I did want to mention a couple of trades that are out this week.
Okay.
Just because, as we talked, this is a short week or a light week, in terms of new books. So I'm using the fact that it is that to pick up some extra trades. From Albatross Funny Book, Big Man Plans, the expanded edition by Eric Powell, is one that I loved when it originally came out. There is a Absolute Wonder Woman Gods and Mortals hardcover, which is a great sort of Wonder Woman. I wouldn't call it a textbook, but it's a great kind of primer for Wonder Woman knowledge. And then the Me You Love in the Dark trade, which those books were really hard to get when it originally came out. And from a company I've never heard of called Stockpile Comics, Forever Winter Volume 1, Once Upon a Time in Post-Apocalyptic Boston, written by a guy named Joel Lohler. 30 years after the end of the world, Forever Winter follows a large cast of characters as they live and die in the broken landscape where winter never ends. Following the one clue he has at his disposal, the name Elric, James Coleman sets out into a post-apocalyptic New England to track down his father's murderer with little more than the coat on his back and a sword by his side. It's a graphic novel, trade paperback.
A post-apocalyptic world that's covered in snow. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I love the kind of concept that it's it's a nuclear winter kind of story. And then one other thing I want to mention, it probably comes out next week, but it's on our list for this week. Follow Me Into the Darkness, #1, which is a follow-up of You Promised Me Darkness from Behemoth Comics.
Which will eventually be led into the third series. This is Darkness?
Well, I feel like the third series is just going to be called Death Cab for Cutie.
Mm. And I want to point out one that I picked up that is, you might be able to get it at your shops, but you should look for it. This is the official Image timeline.
Yes.
That Jim Valentino did. I had to get myself a copy. This is so badass. It really is.
It really is.
It covers so much of the Image history. I'm a little hurt that none of my books popped up in there, but I'm okay with that.
I don't think the freeze is...
Oh, I was thinking when I relaunched Shadowhawk.
Oh, that's fair.
Off of the Image United thing, which was Image United was mentioned in here. Or my work on, with Steve Niles over there.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think more or less this is just Jim going through and chronologically cataloging his notes.
Yeah. These are some of the big things like, when Robert Kirkman first showed up and stuff like that. Or,
that time we got sued for that thing.
Yes.
By the way, I made a joke earlier on your show that I'm not sure you got. You said that you went online to see if anybody had done the work on the differences between the Agatha Christie books and the Agatha Christie movies.
Uh-huh.
And you found an article that you wrote, and I said, way to Rob Liefeld yourself.
I got that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Anybody who's ever seen his book Bloodstrike #1 is the cover is just New Mutants 98.
Oh yeah. Hey, why waste a good cover layout?
Right. No, it's one thing to cover steel. It's another thing to just redo your own work.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny though when I went out. I'm like, okay, changes to Murder on the Orient Express. Oh, it's a Bleeding Cool article. Oh, I wrote it. Okay.
You want to hear something else that's funny? You know how Bleeding Cool does birthdays of people who are notable in the comic book industry?
Yeah.
Tomorrow is my birthday, so I'm going to go and see if I make it. Don't tell anybody.
Okay.
So if I don't make it, I'll know where I stand.
Yeah. I keep checking the top 100 list and I haven't made it yet. So
yeah, we're working on it. So. All right, guys, head over to comicshoplocator.com, type in the area code of or the zip code of where you're at, and it will tell you where there are comic shops. I traveled this weekend. I'll be traveling again next weekend, and I use Comic Shop Locator when I travel to find stores in those areas so that I can visit them, because I like to visit comic book stores and pick up stuff. So I picked up the entire, Funko Pop did a 5-pack. It's all of Pearl Jam.
Oh, nice.
I found that at a shop I'd never been to before. So make sure you use Comic Shop Locator to find comic shops in an area nearby to you.
By the way, I'm disappointed that Funko has put out 4 James Bond pops, but not all of them. There's no Timothy Dalton. There's no George Lazenby.
I wonder if they don't have Image licensing issues with those 2 particular Bonds.
Possibly?
Yeah.
Huh. Good question. What if there's a Flash Gordon series of pops from the old 80s movie?
Not that I've ever seen.
That would be cool. And then Dalton would be in that too.
Right. Not that I've ever seen, which is why I think maybe Timothy Dalton's Image licensing is difficult.
He'd also show up in The Rocketeer if they did ones off that movie.
They did, but they're all just dudes in the helmet.
Oh, man.
Right.
And it's not like they really look that close.
Right. But you still have to pay for those likeness rights.
Yeah.
So, Dan will be back with the Dan Wickline show tomorrow and Thursday.
Tomorrow we're going to talk about the little-known series Pennyworth, which is absolutely blowing my mind.
Right. And then on Thursday?
On Thursday, I'm going to pull from myself again, and we're going to talk about the psychology and history of the Riddler as we go into the weekend as Batman opens.
I have somewhere a fanzine published by Dick Sprang about the Riddler.
Interesting.
Because he created the Riddler.
Okay.
And he did a fanzine basically about my role in creating the Riddler. And I have it somewhere. I have to find it. Maybe I can find it for Thursday and bring it on.
Yeah.
But it's signed to Mike.
Nice.
I don't know who Mike is. I bought it like fourth hand. But, you know.
I got to tell you that Dick Sprang may have created the character, but in a lot of ways, I think what made the character click was Frank Gorshin.
Oh, certainly. And I think even Dick Sprang would have told you that. But
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I wanted the Riddler to ride a horse. We all understand why that didn't work. That's easy.
The character shows up like twice. You know, he first appearance, another one, then he's gone for like 17 years.
Yep.
And then they just happened to use him the same week that the guys that went into the comic shop to buy Batman books for the producer who ended up putting Batman together picked up the one that had Riddler in it, and Riddler was the first villain in the Batman series.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things is like, we did it and it didn't work. And then it went away. And then it came back and we're like, wish we'd have thought of that. Like those are a lot of this fanzine was, okay, I came up with the idea, but it was other people's work who made it work.
I'm gonna tell you right now. I think the popularity of Deadpool has very little to do with Rob Liefeld.
Almost nothing to do with Rob Liefeld. And I would argue almost nothing to do with Danny Way.
Who's Danny Way?
He wrote Deadpool kind of in that middle section.
No, the guy that basically made Deadpool who we love today, Joe Kelly.
Right.
What Joe Kelly and Walter McDaniel did on their run is the fourth wall breaking, all of that stuff that people love about Deadpool.
Right. You had Liefeld, then you had Joe Kelly, then you had Danny Way, who wrote the most issues of Deadpool until Brian Posehn and Jerry Duggan came along. But tried to turn him back towards what Liefeld had originally done and made it super serious. And like, there's a ton of issues of stuff, but they're all garbage.
Yeah.
And then, it's Joe Kelly and then Brian Posehn and Jerry Duggan.
Yep. Yeah, to me, it's Joe Kelly and Walter McDaniel's run is what made Deadpool great. And, and Rob basically made a copy of Deathstroke the Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. Lee says, not sure if you fellows covered this because I joined. How did you two think this Batman will stack up against Christopher Nolan's run?
I won't see this Batman until March 12th. I've rented a theater so that when I'm disappointed, I can scream and yell and no one can say anything to me.
I think it's going to be a different type of Batman. I think this is going to lean into the Dark Knight detective. I think they're going to really dig into join the Dan Wickline show on Thursday, because we're going to talk about the Riddler and also the version that they're going to go and how it actually makes sense where Matt Reeves is going does exist in the psychology the Riddler had created.
Right.
So
I honestly, for the longest time, and I'm still not 100% convinced it's not, thought that this is a Batman Beyond story that they're going to try and tell in this, that it's something that you would normally see in the Batman Beyond version. Like not that they're going to recreate a Batman Beyond story for the screen, but that it would, it wouldn't be in a traditional detective or Batman comic. It would be in a Batman Beyond or a one shot or a mini series of some kind.
I saw a reviewer describe it as basically if Batman was doing the Chinatown type story in the 70s with David Fincher as the director is what you're getting.
Well, Dan, we have a mutual friend and who's seeing it today.
We do.
Yeah. At a press screening.
Who would that be?
Rich.
Ah.
He posted a picture of like going into the theater now. So I'll be interested to see what he has to say.
Yeah.
Because usually he and I don't come down too far apart on the movies. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. I got to get into those press screenings. We need to make that happen.
Yeah, we'll work on it. But like I said, I rented an entire movie theater to see the Batman.
Nice.
And if none of my friends show up, like I can invite a number of friends. If none of them show up, I'm okay. I just will yell at the screen like I'm in my own home. So.
Well, you didn't invite me.
It's a little far for you to drive.
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
you're right.
Not like I'm just around the corner, man.
True.
So, all right. Danny DeVito's Penguin was one of the first nightmares I ever had as a kid. That and the Leprechaun. The first Batman nightmare I ever had was Scarecrow from the Batman Nightfall comic books.
Mine was Condiment King, but I don't want to talk about it.
By the way, something that came out at Comics Pro that we can talk about here is that there is a new book coming out called Count Crawley that is written by David Desmalchin, who played Polka Dot Man.
Yes.
In the Suicide Squad. And the way they announced it was they had him play Count Crowley, who is a sort of a Svengoolie kind of character. But like they start and they go, we're here to announce this is Count Crawley's move. Oh crap, where are my teeth? And then he turns, he puts his little fangs in. Like it was so campy and so great that like I loved him in Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm.
And that like I called my comic book store and go, look, you don't have FOC information, you don't have initial order information. Put this down. I want every cover. I want whatever they put out, I want.
62, that's a really bad joke. I like it, but it's a bad joke.
That's
David S. Malchin has done a lot of comic related stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Besides Polka Dot Man, he was the voice of Calendar Man in the Long Halloween animation. He was in the original Batman Begins as the Dark Knight as Joker's henchman. He was on The Flash as Abracadabra. And of course, he's in the Marvel movie, in the Ant-Man movies as Kirk. So the guy's got massive comic credits and geek cred. So
yeah, it comes back in March. And like I said, the trailer they showed was just I've actually reached out to Dark Horse going, hey, the Experience would like to promote this book. Can you send us the trailer? We won't even charge you, just so I can watch it a bunch of times.
Nice.
Don't tell my bosses. All right. So that's it for us. That's going to do it. We're going to get out of here. We will see everybody tomorrow for the Dan Wickline show.
Yes.
5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific.
Your homework assignment is to watch Pennyworth 1 through 5. It's on HBO Max now, no longer on Epix. So,
correct. And we will see everybody tomorrow.
Good night, everybody.